At 79, Mr. Harrison was a man of substantial wealth but little joy. He had lived a life of accomplishment and prosperity, yet as the years wore on, all that remained was a vast emptiness. His grand estate was filled with every luxury imaginable: polished marble floors, priceless artworks, and ornate furniture. But for all its grandeur, the house was devoid of the warmth and laughter that make a home feel alive. Mr. Harrison's wife had passed away a decade earlier, and he had no children to fill the rooms with youthful energy or provide companionship in his twilight years. Instead, he spent his days in silence, accompanied only by the ticking of a grandfather clock echoing through the lonely halls. Despite his wealth, Mr. Harrison found little comfort in the trappings of his success. He had built a business empire, watched his investments grow, and amassed a fortune few could imagine. Yet, in these later years, none of it seemed to matter. The business associates and friends he once entertained had drifted away, each absorbed by their own families and lives. Even his loyal butler, James, had recently retired, leaving Mr. Harrison with a skeleton crew of staff who managed the estate with cold efficiency but little human warmth. Each morning he would rise early, his routine as precise as the clockwork that dominated his empty mansion. He would have breakfast alone, reading the news as he had done for decades, scanning the headlines with a detached interest that faded by the end of the first page. He would then spend hours pacing through the rooms, memories tugging at him with every step. He remembered holidays spent with his wife, her laughter echoing through the halls, the small gatherings they'd hosted, and the gentle touches of love that had once filled his life. But now, those moments felt like distant dreams, barely touching the reality of his current existence. The one activity he looked forward to was his afternoon outing to a small, unassuming cafe nestled in a bustling neighborhood. It was a modest establishment, filled with the aroma of freshly brewed coffee and baked pastries, far removed from the luxury he was accustomed to. Mr. Harrison would sit by the window, nursing his coffee, watching the people around him. He observed young couples, parents with children, groups of friends sharing laughter, and strangers passing by. For a fleeting moment, he would feel connected to the world outside, but the feeling never lasted. As soon as he stepped out of the cafe, the loneliness returned, wrapping around him like an old, unwelcome companion. One rainy afternoon, Mr. Harrison settled into his usual spot by the cafe window, a cup of coffee warming his hands as he watched the people bustling by under their umbrellas. Just as he was drifting into his familiar state of quiet observation, his attention was drawn to a young girl who had just entered the cafe, her thin figure slightly shivering from the cold. The girl appeared to be about 10 years old, her clothes worn and a little too large, suggesting they might have been passed down or chosen more for practicality than fit. Her hair was slightly messy, and her shoes were scuffed from what Mr. Harrison could only imagine were long walks through the city streets. Despite her modest appearance, her eyes were bright with determination as she approached the counter, a small, crumpled handful of money clutched tightly in her hand. Intrigued, Mr. Harrison leaned in, listening as the girl spoke quietly to the cashier. She ordered a small pizza, her voice laced with excitement. But as the cashier calculated the total face fell. She placed her money on the counter, counting and recounting with her small fingers, but it was clear that she didn't have enough. The cashier looked at her sympathetically. "I'm sorry, sweetheart. You're a bit short." The girl's cheeks flushed with embarrassment as she fumbled with her money, murmuring, "I thought I had enough. It's for my mom's birthday. She loves pizza, and I wanted to surprise her." A pang of empathy surged through Mr. Harrison. He could see the girl's distress, her desperation to do something special for her mother, and it stirred something in him that had long been dormant. Without hesitation, he stood up and walked over to the counter, placing a bill on top of her coins. "Let me cover the rest," he said gently, smiling down at her. The girl looked up, her wide eyes filled with a mix of surprise and gratitude. She seemed too stunned to speak at first, and then, in a soft voice, she whispered, "Thank you, sir. Really, thank you." Mr. Harrison waved his hand dismissively, as if to say it was nothing. "What's your name?" he asked, his tone warm and kind. "Lily," she replied, still clutching the pizza box as if it were the most precious gift in the world. "It's nice to meet you, Lily. Is it really your mother's birthday?" he asked, his curiosity piqued by the tenderness in her gesture. Lily nodded, her expression brightening. Yes, she's not able to walk, so she stays at home all day. I thought a pizza would make her happy. It's her favorite, and she hasn't had it in a long time. The simplicity of her wish and the innocence of her words touched Mr. Harrison deeply. Here was a young girl who had so little, yet was willing to give all she had to bring a small joy to her mother. It reminded him of his own younger days, back when he believed in the magic of small gestures, before life had become a series of transactions and profits. "You're a very thoughtful daughter," he said, smiling. "Your mother is lucky to have you." Lily's face softened and she looked down, almost bashful. "She always does so much for me, even though it's hard for her. I just wanted to do something nice for her birthday." A wave of warmth filled Mr. Harrison's heart, and he felt an inexplicable urge to continue this connection, to be part of something more genuine than the cold solitude of his mansion. After a brief pause, he asked, "Do you and your mother live nearby?" Lily hesitated, glancing at the floor before nodding. "Yes, not too far, just a few streets over." "Would you mind if I joined you for a walk home?" he offered, surprising himself with the request. "I'd love to meet the woman who raised such a kind daughter." Lily looked at him uncertainly for a moment, but something in Mr. Harrison's gentle expression reassured her. She nodded shyly, and together they stepped out of the cafe, with Mr. Harrison holding an umbrella over them as they made their way through the misty streets. As they walked, Lily chattered about her mother, explaining that her mother had been injured in an accident years ago and had difficulty moving. Lily, being the only child, had learned to help her mother with daily chores, shopping, and other needs. She did all of this with a natural sense of duty, though she didn't seem to view it as a burden. Instead, her voice was filled with pride and love whenever she spoke of her mother. Mr. Harrison listened intently, his heart swelling with a strange blend of admiration and melancholy. The more he learned about Lily's life, the more he realized how isolated he had been from such simple human connections. Here was this young girl, facing challenges he could scarcely imagine, yet full of joy and hope. He, on the other hand, had spent years surrounded by wealth but empty of purpose. When they reached Lily's modest apartment building, she paused at the entrance, looking up at him with gratitude in her eyes. "Thank you again, sir. My mom will be so happy." Mr. Harrison smiled softly. "I'm glad to have helped, Lily. Perhaps I could come by sometime and bring her another pizza?" Lily's eyes lit up with excitement, but she quickly composed herself, nodding modestly. "I think she'd really like that." He watched as she disappeared into the building, the pizza box in hand, her small frame vanishing into the dim hallway. For a long moment, Mr. Harrison stood outside, his heart filled with a warmth he hadn't felt in years. The encounter had stirred something deep within him, a realization that perhaps he, too, still had the capacity to care, to give, and to find meaning beyond his solitary existence. As he turned to leave, he knew this wasn't the end. He had felt a connection with Lily that he couldn't ignore, a pull that made him want to know more, to be there for her in whatever way he could. And in that brief encounter, a seed of change was planted in Mr. Harrison's heart, a desire to reach out, to share his life, and maybe, just maybe, find a sense of purpose again. After their first encounter, Mr. Harrison couldn't get Lily out of his mind. Her gentle spirit, her kindness, and her unwavering love for her mother had struck a deep chord within him. She was unlike anyone he had met in a long time, someone who lived with so little yet had a heart full of generosity. She had reminded him of something he hadn't felt in years: purpose. The next day, Mr. Harrison found himself back at the cafe, hoping to see her again. He sat by the window, sipping his coffee and watching each face that entered, his heart lifting every time a young girl walked through the door. Just when he thought he might leave, the bell above the door chimed, and there she was, Lily, the same small, hopeful figure he had met the day before. Lily noticed Mr. Harrison almost immediately, and a smile lit up her face as she approached his table. "Hello, sir," she said shyly. Mr. Harrison's heart warmed at her greeting. "Hello, Lily. It's good to see you again." They chatted for a while, Mr. Harrison asking about her day and her plans. Lily told him about school, her love for drawing, and how she would sometimes make little handmade cards for her mother. Their conversation flowed naturally, and Mr. Harrison felt a lightness he hadn't experienced in years. After a while, he reached into his pocket and handed her a small envelope. "For you and your mother. Consider it a small gift." Lily looked at the envelope hesitantly, then up at Mr. Harrison, her face a mix of gratitude and uncertainty. "Thank you, sir. But I don't want to take too much from you. You already helped me yesterday." Mr. Harrison smiled softly. "It's nothing, my dear. I have more than I could ever need, and it makes me happy to know I can make things a little easier for you and your mom." Reluctantly, Lily took the envelope, thanking him once more before leaving the cafe. As she walked away, Mr. Harrison felt a growing sense of fulfillment, as if helping her had given him a reason to look forward to each day. In the days that followed, Mr. Harrison and Lily established an unspoken routine. Every afternoon he would wait at the cafe, and soon enough, Lily would show up, her face lighting up with joy at seeing him. They would talk about everything from school to her dreams for the future. Lily confided in Mr. Harrison about her mother's health challenges, explaining how hard her mother worked to give her a normal life, despite her own struggles. Mr. Harrison listened to every word, marveling at Lily's resilience and devotion. He learned that her mother had once been a talented dancer, but a car accident years ago had left her partially paralyzed. Ever since, she had been doing what she could to make ends meet, taking on small jobs from home and relying on Lily for daily support. The more he heard, the more invested he became. He started finding ways to support them discreetly, paying for school supplies, arranging for grocery deliveries, even slipping small sums of money into her coat pocket when she wasn't looking. Each gesture, though simple, filled Mr. Harrison's days with purpose, a stark contrast to the cold solitude of his mansion. Over time, their relationship deepened. Mr. Harrison became a figure of support and warmth for Lily, almost like a surrogate grandfather. Lily, in turn, gave him a reason to laugh and smile. She began to ask about his life too, listening intently as he shared stories about his younger days, his travels, and his late wife. Talking to Lily was different from any other interaction he had had in recent years. She didn't care about his wealth or status to her. He was simply a kind friend, someone she could trust and rely on. One afternoon, as they were sharing a slice of cake, Mr. Harrison asked her, "Lily, have you ever thought about what you want to be when you grow up?" Lily's eyes sparkled with excitement. "I want to be a nurse, like the kind lady who helps my mom. She's always so kind and makes my mom feel better. I want to help people too." Mr. Harrison felt a swell of pride in his chest. "That's a wonderful goal, Lily. I have no doubt you'll be a fantastic nurse one day." The moments they shared became the highlights of Mr. Harrison's life. Each morning he would wake up with a newfound enthusiasm, eagerly anticipating their afternoon chats. His heart, once weighed down by loneliness, felt lighter, filled with a warmth that he hadn't known in years. Lily had become a source of light in his life, and he in hers. Yet, for all the joy Lily brought him, Mr. Harrison continued to keep his support discreet. He wanted to help her and her mother without disrupting their sense of independence or making Lily feel indebted to him. He wasn't just giving her gifts, he was finding meaning in the simple act of giving itself. It was a feeling that no amount of wealth or luxury could replace. One afternoon he watched Lily leave the cafe, and a thought crossed his mind. What would he do if she ever stopped coming? The thought was unsettling. For the first time in years he had someone to care for, someone whose presence gave his life purpose. The idea of losing that connection filled him with a fear he hadn't felt in years, but he quickly brushed it aside, reminding himself to savor every moment he had with her. As winter approached, Mr. Harrison decided to give Lily a special gift. He found a beautifully illustrated book on nursing and medicine, a rare find that he knew would inspire her. He wrapped it carefully and waited at the cafe, eager to see her reaction. When she arrived and unwrapped the gift, her face lit up with pure joy. "Thank you, Mr. Harrison," she exclaimed, hugging the book to her chest. "This is the best gift I've ever gotten." Seeing her happiness, Mr. Harrison felt a surge of emotion. Lily's happiness had become his own, and for the first time in years, he felt truly alive. Day by day, his heart grew fonder of Lily, and he came to think of her as family. But for now, he was content with the silent role he played in her life, knowing that, for once, he was part of something real and meaningful. Lily had rekindled a joy he had thought lost forever, a reason to keep going, and a warmth that spread through every corner of his soul. In her laughter, in her stories, and in her gratitude, Mr. Harrison found a reflection of the love he had lost, and with it, a hope that perhaps his life still held the promise of happiness, hidden in the gentle, unwavering connection between him and a little girl named Lily. One chilly winter afternoon, Mr. Harrison arrived at the cafe and took his usual seat by the window. But this time something was different. He looked at the clock, noticing that Lily was late. It wasn't like her to miss their afternoon meetings, even when the weather was harsh or she had extra responsibilities at home. Hours passed, and yet there was no sign of her. By the following day, Mr. Harrison's concern grew. The cafe felt empty without her laughter, her stories, and her bright smile. He asked the cafe staff if anyone had seen her, but no one knew where she was. After several days of her absence, his worry turned to fear. His heart weighed heavily with a growing dread that something had happened to the little girl who had brought meaning back into his life. Determined to find her, Mr. Harrison began asking around her neighborhood. Finally, one of the neighbors recognized her and explained in a hushed, sympathetic tone that Lily had fallen gravely ill. She was in the hospital, and her condition was deteriorating. Mr. Harrison's face paled as he listened, feeling a surge of panic that he hadn't experienced in years. Without hesitation, he made his way to the hospital, his heart pounding with worry. When he arrived, he found Lily's mother sitting in the hallway, her face drawn and pale, her hands clasped tightly together, as though in silent prayer. She looked up, startled, as Mr. Harrison approached, and her eyes were filled with a mixture of exhaustion and despair. He could see that she had been crying. "Are you Lily's friend?" she asked, her voice weak and trembling. Mr. Harrison nodded, his voice gentle. "Yes, I am. I met her at the cafe. She told me so much about you. I've come to see if there's anything I can do to help." The woman looked at him with weary gratitude, her eyes brimming with tears. She explained that Lily had contracted a severe infection, and despite the doctor's efforts, her condition was worsening. She needed more extensive treatment, but the costs were far beyond what her mother could afford. Desperation laced her words as she admitted that she had no one else to turn to, that she was terrified of losing her daughter. Mr. Harrison felt an ache in his heart, the weight of her words sinking in. This little girl, who had so selflessly given all she had to bring joy to her mother, was now fighting for her life, and her mother was utterly powerless to help her. Without a second thought, Mr. Harrison reached out, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "Please, allow me to cover the medical expenses," he said softly. "I want to make sure Lily gets the best treatment available." Lily's mother looked at him, her expression a mix of shock and overwhelming gratitude. "But why would you do this for us?" she whispered, unable to comprehend his generosity. Mr. Harrison took a deep breath, realizing that this was the moment to reveal the truth. He couldn't keep his identity hidden any longer. "Because Lily means the world to me," he admitted, his voice cracking. "She brought something back into my life that I thought I'd lost forever: hope, kindness, purpose. I've been helping her quietly, trying not to intrude on your lives. But now, in this moment, I need you to know who I really am." He went on to explain how he had met Lily, the simple act of helping her buy a pizza, and how that small encounter had blossomed into a profound connection. He revealed that he had been supporting them in little ways, bringing groceries, school supplies, and even covering other expenses anonymously. The tears in her mother's eyes grew as she listened, touched by the depth of his care and devotion. "She saved me in a way I cannot fully explain," Mr. Harrison said, his voice thick with emotion. "Please, let me help her now. It's the least I can do for all the joy she's brought into my life." Lily's mother's resolve finally broke, and she let out a small sob, nodding in acceptance and gratitude. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice choked. "Thank you for everything." With Mr. Harrison's support, Lily was moved to a better facility, where she received the treatment she needed. The medical staff spared no effort in ensuring her recovery, administering advanced therapies and monitoring her progress around the clock. Mr. Harrison visited her daily, sitting by her bedside, watching over her as she fought to regain her strength. He held her hand, speaking softly to her even as she drifted in and out of consciousness, his heart breaking every time he saw her struggle. In those quiet moments at her bedside, he was reminded of the profound emptiness that had consumed him before she came into his life. For the first time in years, he found himself praying praying that Lily would recover, that he would get to see her smile again, that this little girl who had given him a second chance at life would have a chance to live hers fully. Days turned into weeks, and gradually, Lily began to show signs of improvement. Her strength returned, and the color came back to her cheeks. The day she finally opened her eyes and looked up at Mr. Harrison, he felt a wave of relief wash over him so intense that tears slipped down his face. She looked at him weakly, managing a faint smile. "Mr. Harrison," she whispered, her voice hoarse but filled with warmth. "You stayed. Thank you." Mr. Harrison squeezed her hand, smiling through his tears. "Of course I stayed, Lily. I'll always be here for you." Her mother, watching from the corner of the room, placed her hand on Mr. Harrison's shoulder, the weight of her gratitude beyond words. In that room, in the quiet moments following Lily's recovery, a bond solidified between them, a family forged not by blood but by love, resilience, and the kindness of a lonely old man who had found his way back to happiness through a little girl's innocent heart. As they sat together, Mr. Harrison knew that his life had forever changed. The love he felt for Lily was no longer just that of a friend or benefactor. She had become like a granddaughter to him, someone whose happiness and well-being were now as important as his own. And in that realization, he found a peace that he had been missing all his life, a fulfillment that no wealth could buy, a connection that no luxury could replicate. In Lily's recovery, Mr. Harrison saw a chance for redemption, a reminder that the greatest joy in life comes not from what one possesses but from the people whose lives we touch. Lily's recovery marked a new beginning not just for her, but for Mr. Harrison as well. Each day he found himself looking forward to their time together, and he cherished the laughter, joy, and warmth that Lily and her mother brought into his life. The sterile emptiness of his mansion felt like a distant memory now. In its place was a simple, fulfilling existence that he could never have imagined. After her release from the hospital, Mr. Harrison became an essential part of their family, stepping seamlessly into their lives. He helped Lily with her studies, shared meals with them, and even celebrated small, everyday moments that felt more meaningful than the grandest parties he had once thrown. Lily's mother often expressed her gratitude, but Mr. Harrison would simply smile, reassuring her that he was exactly where he wanted to be. Over time, Mr. Harrison realized that the greatest wealth he had was not his fortune, but the relationships he had built. He had spent so many years amassing material riches, only to discover that true happiness lay in the simple act of giving, in being there for others. Lily and her mother had given him a family he hadn't known he needed, a family that loved him, not for his money, but for the kindness he had shown them. Moved by the strength of their bond, Mr. Harrison made a decision. He wanted to be even closer to them, to share every moment of joy and every challenge. With that in mind, he sold his vast, empty mansion and bought a modest house just down the street from Lily's family. It was a simple home, but it was filled with warmth, laughter, and the promise of shared moments that had become the cornerstone of his happiness. For the first time in decades, Mr. Harrison woke up each morning with a purpose, his days filled with love and companionship. He would often sit in his small garden with Lily, talking about her dreams of becoming a nurse, her plans to help others the way she had been helped. These conversations reminded him of his own dreams and aspirations, long since buried under years of isolation and wealth. But through Lily's enthusiasm and innocence, he felt a renewed sense of life. In his final years, Mr. Harrison knew that he had found something far more valuable than anything he had once possessed. His health may have been declining, and his wealth may have dwindled by choice, but his spirit was alive with joy. Surrounded by Lily and her mother, he had created a family bound by love, respect, and shared experiences, qualities that no amount of money could buy. One evening, as they sat together in his little living room, Lily took his hand and looked up at him with a serious expression. "Mr. Harrison," she said softly, "do you know you're the best friend I've ever had?" He chuckled, squeezing her hand. "And you, my dear, have given me the greatest gift I could ever ask for, a reason to live each day with joy." Their laughter filled the room, and for Mr. Harrison, that moment encapsulated everything he had been searching for his entire life. The years he had spent in solitude, locked away in his grand estate, felt like a distant dream. Now he was living in the present, his heart full, surrounded by the love and companionship he had longed for. As the days passed, The bond between them only grew stronger, and Mr. Harrison took comfort in knowing that he had left behind a legacy of kindness and love. He had learned, in his twilight years, that true wealth lay in the lives he touched, the family he created from unexpected connections, and the simple joys of giving. In the end, Mr. Harrison's journey came full circle, and he spent his remaining days at peace, knowing that he had found a home not in bricks or possessions, but in the hearts of those he loved. And as he looked into Lily's bright eyes, he knew that his life, once empty and cold, had become something beautiful, a story of redemption, friendship, and the profound power of love. Thank you for joining us on this heartfelt journey of friendship, kindness, and the power of connection. This story reminds us that sometimes the greatest riches are found in the relationships we build and the lives we touch. If this story moved you, please give it a thumbs up and let us know in the comments. Has there ever been a person who changed your life in an unexpected way? We'd love to hear your story.